So, Doc, feel free to take it away.
Thanks, Dana, very much. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Robert Leonard. I'm the founder and director of the Hair Health Institute, and I've been taking care of men and women who are concerned about their hair loss for nearly 40 years now. It's unbelievable to me that so much time has gone by and doing something I really love. Today, I'm going to answer questions that have been asked literally thousands of times. Why does my hair shed so much in the summer? And how can I protect my hair and scalp during this best time of the year? The summer is my favorite time of the year, and let's get started. Next slide. Dana?
Yeah, I changed the slide. Did you not see?
Oh, sorry. I can't see it on my end the way this is set up. So, anyways, these are the most common concerns people have during the summer months when we're exposed to UV radiation. UV means ultraviolet, which is a particular wavelength on the spectrum of light. And the ones that the sun emits are harmful in many ways. And because the summertime has us be in the direct sunlight for so many hours each day, let's face it, who doesn't want to be outdoors during this time of year? But there are indeed unique environmental factors that literally can cause problems with our hair. So we see here seasonal hair shedding. It peaks during the summer and early fall. UV exposure in general weakens the hair and damages the scalp. Heat and humidity disrupts scalp moisture, which is important in balancing the bacteria and inflammation. And sweat and buildup of sunscreens, etc., can cause further problems. Next slide. Did you know that it's normal to lose about 100 hairs per day? This is a normal shedding of the human scalp. But if you lose more of that, you probably indeed have genetic hair loss. So normal hair shedding is up to 100 hairs per day, and those hairs during the hair cycle will recycle and they'll grow back. Some people have temporary hair loss. It's uniform in coverage. It's not like a receded hairline or a bald spot in the back of the head. Some people don't recognize the thinning in this normal stage, and the hair regrows, as I said. Hair takes about 2 to 6 years from a growing hair to fall out and then recycles about 2 to 6 years. So it's kind of amazing. It's a long time. A shorter growth phase means you don't grow your hair as long. A longer growth phase, your hair is able to grow much longer. So what deserves evaluation? If you have hair loss that lasts several weeks, if your hair loss is visibly thinning to you, if you do have recession of crown changes, or if you have any sort of irritation to the scalp, that's very important. Next slide. So all during my years of counseling patients, I've made it clear of the importance of a healthy scalp. After all, a healthy scalp provides a healthy milieu for hair follicles to live and grow, which in turn, they'll grow healthier, fuller, and stronger hair. Any sort of inflammation, which is a very common occurrence, especially in the summertime, whether recognized, it can feel a sunburn, for example, or it's subclinical. Inflammation is bad for the human tissue. Whether it's your scalp or your GI tract or anywhere at all, inflammation is not good, including the scalp. Next slide. So the hallmark of the most common type of hair loss is called miniaturization of the hair follicle. And here I have a little cartoon. It's actually, I call it the birthday cake. It kind of looks like a birthday cake for doctors. And what's important to recognize is that if you look on the left side of the image, those hairs are actually deeply embedded into the skin, way down deep. They're dark, they're thick, they're plentiful. And over time, due to a couple of different factors, decreased blood flowing, inflammation, the cells of the hair follicle aren't working properly. Over time, they begin to miniaturize. So looking right in the middle, you can see that the hairs are finer, they're shorter, they're not deeply embedded into the skin. And finally, on the right-hand side, there are those little tiny ones. They're less pigmented, they're few in number. But it's important to recognize, it's very important to recognize that even though they're miniaturized, the hair is still attached, the follicle is still attached to the blood supply. Those little red and blue lines are actually arteries and veins. And this process is called miniaturization. Now, this does not happen overnight. It takes months to years, often many months to years. But one thing that a scary statistic is that after 50% of all the hairs on the head have miniaturized is when a person begins to notice his or her hair thinning. So an important factor, not talking about necessarily summer hair loss at this moment, but an important factor to recognize is if you notice your hair is thinning, it's important to get it evaluated because it's probably from a genetic hair loss, androgenetic alopecia. And that's something that is a progressive condition. And if you don't arrest it early, you'll continue to lose more and more hair and you become thinner and thinner. And eventually, indeed, bald, particularly if you're a man, it'll take a toll on what's left on your head. So miniaturization is very important. The follicles gradually shrink, and over time, again, months to years, it's a problem. Summer stresses like UV exposure, heat, and buildup can accelerate this process. So it's important to recognize it and to be aware of it. Next slide. So let's talk about specifically summer hair. Why do you lose your hair more in the summer? Seasonal hair loss is what's happening, and it occurs twice a year from about the 4th of July or thereabouts. And it lasts, this increased hair falling out lasts to about the second week of September. And then everything's nice. Your hair is fine, no hair loss or very little, under 100 hairs per day. And then it strikes again very often in the fall. So from about the 1st of November, Halloween time, to the second week of January, it occurs once again. But this type of hair loss, the good news is that it's usually, but not always, it's usually a temporary situation. And that's called telogen effluvium. That's the medical term for hair loss that happens because of some sort of physiologic insult. So this inflammation from the UV rays is that insult. It insults the scalp, causes inflammation, and causes this hair loss to fall out. After about 3 months, everything calms down most of the time. And then another 3 or 4 months go by and the hair begins to grow again. So this temporary situation is not temporary days or weeks. It's often 3 or 4 months, even up to 6 months. So people have to realize that. When it is not temporary is if a person already has genetic hair loss. They may not recognize it, but they already have genetic hair loss, which is continuous and progressive. Often when the hairs regrow from this temporary hair loss, the thickness of the hair is not the same as it was before it fell out. So you take a hit of density, and that's often the first sign that people have to be aware of to seek medical attention by somebody who is interested in taking care of hair situations, like a dermatologist, hair restoration surgeon, hair loss specialist, and see about getting some sort of treatment, not for the hair that you lost during the summer and grew back, but the hair that over time continues to fall out. Next slide. So UV damage goes deeper than you think. These are some of the negative effects. Some of them are frightening, such as melanoma, which is potentially a deadly skin cancer, precancerous lesions, premature hair aging, and premature turning hair gray. So it's most important to know that there are other factors besides the sun will cause hair to be damaged. So look at this, 90% of people can develop skin cancers that are not melanoma. Between 65 and 90% can actually develop melanoma, which is a very potentially deadly type of skin cancer. Actinic keratosis, or AK, is another non-cancerous skin condition that can be precancerous. We talked about telogen effluvium, the stress-related shedding due to the UV radiation, and also dryness of the scalp and hair shaft. So a lot of patients have said, geez, my hair is so dry, it's so brittle, especially during the summer months. So UV rarely works alone. So if you're swimming in a chlorinated pool or you're going to the ocean and swimming in salt water, that compounds the problem from the UV damage. So you have to be aware of all these factors during the summer that can actually do considerable harm to your hair and potentially have a very harmful effect for potential cancer. So it's important to be aware of. Next slide. So sun protection is not only for your skin, and you definitely have to take a big hit from these UV rays, but the sun causes inflammation, as I said, within the follicle cells, causing production of free radicals. We've heard that term in other parts of our lives. Free radicals are sort of biochemicals that oxidize. They sort of chew away at, for lack of a better term, and they're not good. No matter in the scalp, in the hair, in the gut, anywhere, free radicals are not good. So that's why we want to make sure that free radicals are caused by this UV radiation, and we want to have that stop. So one of the natural barriers for the scalp is hair. So thicker hair provides more protection. And so what you should do to protect yourself from UV radiation is wear hats, common thing to do, and protective clothing. We'll talk about SPF. So clothing now is impregnated with chemicals that will actually provide SPF benefit, like sunscreens currently do for our skin and scalp. UV protected products, sunblocks we talked about. And the other thing is try to limit sun exposure during the high risk hours of the day. So say between 11 and 2 p.m. in any given sunny day, that's when the sun rays are at its strongest. And that's where we have to be out of the sun using umbrellas, et cetera. So also, wearing polarized sunglasses are important because the UV rays can affect the retina of the eye. So these rays are not good for much of anything except giving you a tan, but you have to protect yourself. Nothing's wrong with a tan as long as you're protecting your skin. So sun protection, what's your number? So the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of the United States, recommends an SPF, sun protection factor, of 30 or higher. And here's what actually the SPF number means. So if you have no sunscreen, 100% of the photons, the UV rays, are not blocked. So there's zero protection. SPF 15 provides protection in 93% of the cases. SPF 30, 97%. And an SPF 50 or higher, if you go higher than 50, it's essentially the same, 98%. So that's a big number. So if you have children, you want to make sure they have a very high SPF because children's skin is particularly vulnerable to getting sunburn, and having early sunburn can cause lifelong potential for increased skin cancer over time. The other thing that's important to know when you use a sunscreen is that you have to reapply it at least every 2 hours. I think that has to be even earlier than every 2 hours. If you perspire, you should replace it. If you go into the pool or into the ocean or into the lake, you should reapply it. So more the better as far as reapplication of sunblock for your skin to protect yourself against the UV rays. Next slide. So there are two types of sunscreens. One has chemical filters, and those are organic substances that actually absorb the UV rays. So it's absorbed into the skin, and the UV rays are absorbed into this sunblock. They're good for everyday use. The other type of physical filters, which reflect the UV rays away from the skin, and the physical ones are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Those actually sit on top of the skin, and they block both UVA and UVB rays. So there are two types of UV radiation. They block both. The chemical ones only block UVA, and they sit on your skin. So you can rub them off. You can that they need to be reapplied less often. But if you wipe it off in some way or they scrape off in some way, they need to be reapplied. As far as the scalp, it's difficult to get your copper tone or your banana boat sort of brands of sunblock on your hair, because it will make your hair really greasy and won't be so fun to be at the beach. But there are spray formulations, and the spray formulations are chemical filters. Obviously, they're not physical filters, and they're not greasy. I can't say they're not greasy, but they're significantly less greasy, and they have a pleasant fragrance. So you can actually spray that on your scalp, and you should kind of rub it in through your hair. You don't want it just to sit on your hair. If you have thinning hair, obviously, you really want to get it on your scalp, because it's amazing how many people have told me, and this happened to me myself as well, is that you get a sunburn, and that's the first sign that anyone recognizes that he or she is having thinning hair. And I am a sun worshiper, I will tell you, and I love the beach and I follow the sun around the world whenever possible. And one time many years ago, I got a sunburn on the back of my head and didn't realize I was having thinning hair there. And I told my wife, said, well, what's going on with my head? And she says, you're a hair restoration surgeon, you're a hair loss expert. You got a sunburn because you have thinning hair back there. A lot of people don't know what's going on the back of their head, and we often ignore it as well. So a sunburn is a very overt sign that your hair is thinning and you need to use sunblock there as well. So next slide. So the heat of the summer affects your hair in very different ways, none of which is good. So high heat increases scalp oil production, which can be problematic with causing clogged follicles and not blisters, but pimples and problems like that. Humidity causes hair shafts to swell and contract, which weakens the strands over time. We like when the hair shafts swell because that makes your hair look fuller. The hair shaft is sort of like scales on a fish. So when we use moisturizers, those are products, hopefully natural-based products or chemical products that provide water, and they actually seep in between the scales of the fish. So instead of being tight, they kind of open up, and that makes your hair look fuller. So a lot of people say, well, my shampoo is treating my hair loss. It's making my hair fuller. It's simply that it's making it look fuller. It doesn't treat hair loss necessarily. We will talk about later a brand of hair care line that I designed that does indeed help with hair loss as well. Excessive sweat raises scalp pH, disrupting the environment of the scalp, and therefore you could develop inflammation. That word again comes up all during this talk. Inflammation is bad. And using hot hair dryers on top of the summer heat can damage the strand. So typically, if you use a hair dryer, it doesn't really damage your hair per se, but if you have the UV radiation causing the hair to be more brittle, add the heat to it, it's just not a good thing. So use cool settings on your hair dryer. Next slide. Any buildup of debris in the scalp can create an unhealthy environment. Once inflammation is triggered, a negative cascade begins, which can lead to interruption of the normal hair cycle, and hair thinning can ensue. So what sits on your scalp doesn't just affect how the hair looks, it affects how it grows. So it's important to be aware, and shampooing with natural-based ingredients really is it's really an essential, because chemicals in some of the hair care products, likewise, it's sort of like the chlorine effect in a pool with the sun effect. It's best to get products that are natural-based. Next slide. So one thing that's very important to remember is early detection and recognition of hair loss is critical. If you get a sunburn in your scalp, as I talked about, your hair is thinning, which has to be assessed, because if that's happening now, it only will get worse. So UV exposure, we talked about the hats and products. Heat and humidity reduce hair styling temperature, maintain scalp balance. Sweat and buildup, cleanse regularly. We'll talk about shampooing in a second. And seasonal shedding monitored, because if it doesn't stop after 3 or 4 months, then you need to see if you also have genetic hair loss. So it's important to recognize these various factors at the end of the summer, particularly. Next slide. So best effects. So protection has to be discussed, okay? So we talked about protection. What about scalp support? So as I just mentioned, I actually formulated a line of hair care products called Copper Chemist, and I curated that each and every ingredient in every one of the products. We have a shampoo, conditioner, hair repair for damaged hair, as well as a hair mask. Every single ingredient combats either inflammation, increases moisturization, stimulates blood flow. The active ingredient is very popular in all the social media sites. You've seen all these little cartoons about copper peptides. Well, I've had copper peptides in my products for about 20 years now, long before they became popular on TikTok and all these other social media sites. But it's real. Copper peptides are part of a protein, or they're part of a protein, they're amino acids that really do a lot of really good things for the skin as well as for the hair. So every one of the Copper Chemist lines, that's why we call it copper in the title, has copper peptides in it. So deeply moisturizing, stimulating blood flow makes your hair look fuller and thicker and softer. And it contains no sulfates. These are the bad boys for hair care products. Sulfates, parabens, and phthalates. If your shampoo has any of those things, or your conditioner or product has any of those three chemicals, they are indeed detrimental. They may make your hair foamy and uh, um, feel good, but that's there for those creature comforts, but it's not good for your hair in general. And then stimulation is a very important topic that we talked about in our first webinar, and we'll talk about once again down the road. Those blood vessels that I showed you in that birthday cake slide, they continually are connected to the follicle, whether they're thick terminal hairs, the ones we love, or they go all the way around the corner to these little miniaturized hairs. They're still connected. And one significant cause of hair loss, it's indeed FDA cleared these devices, is decreased blood flowing to the scalp. So that, for whatever reason genetically, if you're genetically predisposed to have this occur to you, you will have decreased blood flowing to your scalp, and the process of miniaturization begins, and it continues on long term. It's not a short term start and stop situation. It's a lifelong progressive situation. So low level laser therapy, or photobiomodulation is the medical term. Photo meaning light energy, but this is not UV, it's good light energy, positive. Uh, Affects bio, which is in our case the hair follicles, and modulation, meaning a positive impact from this light energy on your hair follicles. Photobiomodulation for many years has been called low level laser therapy. And we'll talk about a specific device that I think it really is the best of the best technology available today. Next slide. So you have to be consistent to make something a habit. Cleanse your hair more frequently so you don't have buildup. And what I talk about, and I've been preaching for all of the years I've been in practice taking care of patients with hair loss, it's very important to shampoo your hair every single day. There are other people taking care of your hair I know who strongly disagree with that, but I'm the hair doctor and I'm right, and I have science to prove that I'm right about this. What happens with hair and shampooing? So people start noticing their hair thinning and they shampoo less frequently. It's the absolutely opposite thing that you should do. You should shampoo at least, not at least, you should shampoo once every day. Now, people of color who have very typically dry hair in general, yes, we would spread that out for those particular patients. But in general, most people, you should shampoo every day. And one real good reason is, remember we talked about inflammation. So all over our bodies, we have all these epidermal cells that come off all the time when we wear clothes, when we shower and dry ourselves. All these cells slough off every single day. And they're supposed to, because otherwise they'll build up, which you get flaking and you have other skin conditions that can cause a problem with those not falling off. Well, those cells are also on the scalp, but they don't come off easily. Why? One, because you have all this hair, and two, because you have glands called sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands are glands that secrete an oily substance called sebum. And that oily substance is good for the scalp. It keeps it moisturized. It keeps the follicles, the openings of the follicles available to grow hair through. It's all that. They're positive. However, because those two things are in your scalp, those epidermis cells, which otherwise would come off with, daily washing and wearing clothes, they don't come off. So the only way you'll be able to get those off so they don't build up and build up and build up is by shampooing. And not a little touchy-feely shampoo. You vigorously shampoo and rinse them down the drain with a good shampoo product, and they're gone for the day. Because if not, they build up and bacteria can form. Bacteria can come into that area, and inflammation, that cascade of inflammation begins. And that goes down a very slippery slope to not a good endpoint. So shampoo daily, it's really important. Now people say, well, if I shampoo every day, my hair is going to dry out. Well, that's what conditioners are for. And if you really want a deep condition, use a hair mask twice a week or once a week. And the ingredients and conditioners make your hair soft, but they add that moisture between those scales, like I mentioned before. And that should be done with each and every shampooing. Protect your hair by reducing the heat on styling. If you straight style your hair, or if you blow dry your hair or curling iron, make sure that you don't overdo it, because that's where you can actually damage the shaft of your hair. The shaft of your hair, we see, that's protein. And if you burn protein, you see what happens to protein. That's meat. It's not, it denatures and it's not good. So if you use a curling iron that's too hot, you can actually cause hair breakage. And that's a very unusual condition to happen these days. A lot of people, when they look in the mirror, they see all these little hairs sticking up along the hairline. They're all over the head, but you can see at the front easily. And they say, oh, my hair's breaking. It is not breaking. It is not breaking. Those are miniaturized hairs that have gone through all these cycles and have got shorter and shorter and shorter. So if you look closest to your forehead, they're the shortest. And as you go away from your forehead, they get longer and longer and longer. So those hairs, those are a sign of genetic hair loss. It's not breakage. So that's where you would investigate the potential for having male or female pattern hair loss with a hair loss specialist. And then nourishment. Nourishment is both inside and out. And we want to have a healthy diet. We want to have a diet with a lot of water. That's not a fallacy. Drinking a lot of water is very important for the dryness of your body, skin, including your hair. Next slide. Excuse me. So we touched upon decreasing some of stress, decreasing this inflammation, and we talked about copper peptides already. They do indeed support a healthier scalp. They reduce inflammation caused by summer conditions and general conditions, as we touched upon. We have the Copper Chemist line, which you should check into, because the main ingredient for more than 25 years, nothing new, are copper peptides that I studied about a long time ago. Next slide. So laser therapy, photobiomodulation, uses a specific wavelength. So almost all these laser cap devices you see all over the place these days have a wavelength of light from that same spectrum where UV comes from of 650 nanometers. It's red light. We hear the term red light therapy a lot for everything. Red light therapy is at 650 nanometers, and that has been proven and therefore cleared by the FDA. One of 3 treatments that have been cleared to the FDA by the FDA to treat hair loss. And that stimulates that blood flow we talked about. That wavelength also increases the mitochondria, the activity of these little powerhouses in all of the cells of our body, including the ones in our scalp, so that revs up those cells working with ATP and nitric oxide, these different biochemicals, to grow hair. And it increases the hair cycle so that the hair cycle slows down and hair doesn't fall out as often. So miniaturization is slowed down. And they're drug-free. There are no side effects using laser therapy. So it's one of the therapies that truly provides stabilization of hair loss all over the head 90% of the time. That's a big number for hair. And it regrows hair 60% of the time. Now, nothing happens overnight. If you have a hair transplant procedure, if you use Propecia pill or you use Rogaine foam, anything we do, including laser therapy, takes about 4 months for a person to notice anything. So it takes 4 months for any treatment for hair loss to affect the follicle at that level. So everything goes along as it was going. And after 4 months, you start seeing less hair in the shower, less in your brush, less in your clothing. And then over time, about 9 to 12 months, you start to see those miniaturize being not so miniature anymore. They're starting to grow. They're getting thicker. They're getting fuller. You're noticing your hair more full. Your hairstylist notices hair different in a better way. So it takes about 12 to 18 months to have the real final effect of photobiomodulation or low-level laser therapy to be effective. And to be noticed. No, not effective, to be noticed. This is the device that I recommend to everybody. And what's important to notice on this, it's not like putting a bowl on your head. So the periphery of the edge of the device is the same distance from the top of your scalp all the way around. It goes much more deeply in the back of the head. So if you're a person who notices your ponytail, for example, less fat than it used to be, is it less thick than it was 5 years ago or 2 years ago? That means that your hair loss is incorporating not only the hairs on the top of your head to thin, but also along the sides and back. So the hairs to make a ponytail come from the sides and back as well. And therefore, this cap is ideal for women in particular and for anyone who has a hair transplant procedure, because when we do surgery, we remove the hair to transplant from the back and sides of the head. This goes way down to the nape of the neck and way down over the ears. So most cap devices are not covering as much therapeutic territory as the MD Duo. It's worn just 6 minutes a day. I told you it stops progression 90% and regrows hair 60% of the time. It's an excellent therapy, and it's worn just 6 minutes a day, no side effects. Next slide. So if you'd like to meet with me on a one-to-one basis, I offer a complimentary consultation. It's 45 minutes long. We can talk about your specific hair situation directly together. And you can sign up for that on calendly.com/Doc Leonard, which you'll get in your packet that will be sent to you after this webinar. And also, as an attendee, I'm offering an offer of $200 off the MD Duo to anyone who's on this call as well. So the consultation, here's some more information. You should all check out my website. It's called the Hair Health Institute, and it's hairhealth.org. And I have a lot of very good information on there about hair loss and various types of hair loss. There's therapies available to treat hair loss, et cetera. So check that out. And through the website on the homepage, you can actually schedule that consultation. Next slide. We talked about this nice thing. The offer ends on the 25th of this month, so you have about a week or so. Next slide. I get these questions. These are common. Is it okay to wash your hair every day in the summer? Well, you all know that, of course, you should do that. How do I know if my hair shedding is normal? We talked about if you have more than 100 hairs coming off your scalp per day, that is actually considered abnormal. So you should seek out medical therapy or medical consultation. And what's the first sign the hair loss may be progressing? Well, after 50% of your hair loss is gone, you start noticing thinning. So that noticeable thinning. If you get a sunburn like happened to me, that's other people may be kind and not so kind in letting you know that your hair is thinning and receding. So sometimes that's an unwelcome little knock on the door, but it happens all the time. And last slide. Thank you very, very much for taking your time during your day to hear about what I had to talk about. If you have any questions, put them in the chat and Dana will get them to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah,
Please take a look at.
Do have a couple questions, Doc. So are you good to answer a couple of them now?
I am ready and able and willing.
Perfect. First question is a really good one. I've been seeing a lot written about hair loss caused by GLP-1 medications. Can you talk about that?
Well, what you read about this time is true. The GLPs, whether you use the Mounjaro type or the Wegovy type, they're two different chemicals, but they do the same thing. Definitely cause hair to fall out. Definitely do. So the important thing to recognize is that typically people stay on those medications a long time. As we talked about that telogen effluvium, so sometimes you can have a hair loss that lasts about 3 months and then it stops. But with GLPs, you'll be on them a long time. So those type of patients who are taking those medications should have a consultation with me or with their doctor and get treatment for thinning hair, because If it's not just 3 months, it's long term, and you can have significant hair loss over a long time, which means a big problem for you. So, yes, do investigate through proper medical channels, hair loss experts, and to get treatment for that particular situation.
Great. Next question. Are you aware of HOCl, hypochlorous acid, a type of electrolyzed saline solution? And if so, do you know if it is safe for hair follicles? I've been using it to reduce mild folliculitis and have not noticed it having a negative effect on my hair after a couple of months of use, but unsure of long-term effects.
Well, I have to say, I do not know about that particular compound. I don't know if you can answer if you're here on the chat. Is it a prescription or is this something you're buying over the counter through online? I don't know about that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let us know. And of course, feel free to reach out to Doc directly. Looks like we got a chat. I color my hair and feel okay. I'm going to add that to an additional question. The next question, could you summarize the options for those of us using the OXO 300 laser cap? How important is the cap for stopping hair loss? I've been using it for 2 years and I've seen no improvement until I started oral minoxidil. I know you'll have a response for that, Doc.
Well, the OXO device is one where it should stabilize progression. You should be actually being monitored by your doctor so that we can follow photographically or on a direct physical examination. There are 3 FDA approved or cleared therapies. 1, we talked about low-level laser therapy or photobiomodulation. 2, minoxidil. And 3, well, minoxidil topical is FDA cleared. And then finasteride. But for most women of childbearing age, they shouldn't actually use that. So very often, believe it or not, the last person to notice less hair shedding is the person who's using something every single day and looking in the mirror every single day and really not noticing much of a change. So what you should do is go back to your physician who provided that device to you and discuss it with him or her and see what the next steps are, because it would be highly unusual not to have at least stabilization of progression. Now, if this seasonal hair loss happens, you have to realize that obviously you can have shedding in that short term and then the hair regrows. But typically that's actually a very unusual observation.
Great. And I will say, if you are an OXO A300 user, check your email because we have some specific emails to OXO patients. What are your thoughts on stem cell injections into the scalp for hair loss?
Well, stem cell injections, stem cells are being injected everywhere these days, right? In joints, in your face, everywhere, including on the scalp for hair. There is no FDA approval for these stem cells to be used for any of those reasons. So it's still something that needs good, double-blind, large clinical trials to see if indeed they really do something, to see if there are any adverse effects that can happen from using the short term and particularly long term. So I would stay away from that at this point in time until studies show that they really do something worthwhile to treat hair loss. I'd be quite careful about that because they're very popular. They're advertised everywhere. They're very expensive. And unless you really feel confident that they'll be beneficial for you, I would wait.
Great. Next question. I use finasteride 1 milligram and the MD Duo. I'd love to add another therapy like minoxidil, but being someone with anxiety, I'm afraid of any potential cardiovascular side effects. I've heard the scalp massages can help with blood flow. Is there any truth to this?
Well, there's very little. Scalp massages feel wonderful. They really feel really good. However, it really doesn't do much of anything for blood flow. Using the MD Duo definitely is positively and clinically impacting the blood flow of the scalp. So if you want a scalp massage, that's great, but not for therapeutic purposes for hair. The other thing, minoxidil is really a very, especially if you use topical minoxidil, Rogaine 5%. The main side effects of that medication are itching, scaling, and redness of the scalp skin, which occur about 2% of the time. Unless you have heart disease, there's really no reason not to use Rogaine. If you're concerned about it, and I always mention this with patients all the time, and, that you should talk to your cardiologist or your family physician to get the okay. But there's very little absorption of the minoxidil, which is the active ingredient, into the bloodstream. So it's quite a safe medication. And then now is off-label, so not FDA approved, oral minoxidil. And in that circumstance, I would definitely speak with your primary care or cardiologist who knows your medical situation best to see if there'd be a concern about oral. But topical, I would say, is not a problem.
Okay, great. Just a couple more. I color my hair and feel that shampooing every day washes out the color more quickly. Is shampooing every other day okay?
Shampooing every day is okay, but what's probably happening is you're using a shampoo that is harsh. They probably have one or all of those three bad chemicals: sulfates, parabens, or phthalates. The Copper Chemist line does not do that. Obviously, if you shampoo often, depending upon the type of coloring, if it's a permanent dye or if it's semi-permanent dye, that makes a difference because a semi-permanent dye is the type of dye that just fades over time and you recolor. A permanent dye, that's when you get the white roots, right? That's you'll see a specific line from the colored hair, and the new hair that grows from underneath is white. Those are permanent. So look at the label of your hair care product line and try to get something that does not have any of those three things I just mentioned. And if you shampoo every day, that's fine. It's better to shampoo every single day for the reasons I mentioned regarding inflammation, etc. I have people come in to shampoo once every 2 weeks, and that's a big problem. So I see a lot of people who do that, and sometimes it's advised by a hair care professional, and it's just not a good thing. People go into the shower, young people especially, and they shampoo and they see hair in their hands, and they think the shampooing is causing the hair loss, so they don't shampoo anymore. They shampoo very rarely, and that's just the opposite of what needs to be done, as I discussed.
Great. After having my hair colored, I experience a slight burning sensation on my scalp for about 5 days. Is this normal? Can you recommend a particular coloring product that is safe?
Well, that is common. I wouldn't say it's normal because some irritation is being elicited, whether you have a very minimal allergy to some of the chemicals in those products or not. I would probably talk to a dermatologist about having that evaluated just to know. There are natural based hair care coloring products. I'm trying to think of one of them, something Madison, Holly Madison. You see the commercials online, and they say they have natural base hair care coloring. Some of the problems if you get a natural base coloring product is that the color doesn't last so long in the hair, so you end up using it much more often, but maybe not have that itching or burning. So that's a contact dermatitis. I would speak with your dermatologist about that specifically.
And that's Madison Reed.
Madison Reed. I know there's Madison something. Yeah, check into that one and read their ingredients. I think they advertise that they're natural based.
Great. And then a couple follow-ups, I think from previous questions. So I've been using generic minoxidil and wonder, should I be using the brand name?
No, the generic is fine. At the beginning, I was a little bit concerned about them, but the generics have been available for decades now, and I'm assuming using topical. I would definitely use the foam over the liquid minoxidil because the foam doesn't have some chemical in it called propylene glycol, which is really the main cause of that 2% of people who have itching, scaling, and redness by using topical minoxidil. That percentage decreased dramatically when the foam vehicle was introduced to the market. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Great. And then last question, I believe this was a follow-up to the previous question. HOCl is over the counter. Brand name is Briotech. I believe our skin produces HOCl. So I don't know if you have any additional insight on that,
I
Dr.
really don't know anything about that at all. I'm sorry. So I can't advise you one way or the other.
Well, it's rare to stump Dr. Leonard. So it's a good question. So I encourage everyone, reach out directly. We'll be sending out follow-up emails with this recording, as well as the discount promo code that we mentioned for the MD Duo and the link to book a consultation. Those will also be coming from Dr. Leonard's email. So feel free to respond if you have specific individual questions. But I do encourage you to book a consultation with him. They're complimentary. And obviously you get insight and direct, unique recommendations based on your particular issues that you're experiencing. So thank you all for joining us and spending your lunch hour with us. We're going to close it down now, but again, please reach out and go to our website, hairhealth.org, for more information about Copper Chemist, MD Duo, Dr. Leonard, and again, to book a consultation or learn more. Thank you all
Well,
so
I'd like to thank you all so very much. I appreciate it. And I want to thank Dr. Giovanni, who provided some scientific information about the sunblocks. He was very helpful, and I appreciate that. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Enjoy the summer. Cover your head so you don't get sunburned.
great. Thanks. Doc, you can just end it if you.
Hold on. Okay, here we are. Just end.